Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. Today we have with us writer and director Kelsey Egan from the movie Glasshouse that is releasing on digital and on demand July 12th. Kelsey, thank you so much for being here with us. I know you're in South Africa. Um, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. It's 5 p.m. here. It's been a full day, chatting to lots of lovely people. I'm excited to be on Dead Talk Live. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you. I saw the movie. I was absolutely fascinated by it. Uh, I'm going to start off. Let's just get started off right away. Just to clarify, according to IMDb, this is your feature film directorial debut. Is that accurate?
That is.
Okay. I'm going to start off with a compliment. As a director, and people who love film, whether it's film students, people that have been in the industry for a long time, you start to watch films and you sort of pick up on the director's nuance on how they do stuff. And I gotta tell you, Kelsey, I loved how you directed this film, and I have a particular scene in mind that I want to point out to you. It's somewhere in the middle of the movie where the girls dig up the previously freshly buried body and they have it propped up sitting on a chair, okay? And so we know the body is there, we know it's in the chair, and you do this beautiful 360-degree pan starting from the dead body's
Yeah.
backside all the way to the front. And I'll tell you what, in those 15, I don't know how long it lasted, 15, 20 seconds, I knew it was a dead body. I knew it was decomposed, but you had built up this anticipation in me that I'm like, I was just overwhelmed to see what this corpse looks like. And that's all you. That's your nuance. That's how you like to direct things. Walk us through, just like that scene, uh, since it came across so beautifully, in my opinion, what did you want to portray in that scene?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for noticing that shot because I fought so hard for that shot. You know, when you're doing an independent film like this and you're so strapped for resources and your budget is so small, any shot like that is a risk because our shooting schedule was already so tight. And that type of shot to pull it off requires like every department to come together beautifully. I mean, we had a dolly track laid in the perfect place that we had to plan out like exactly where those tracks. I think we had like two meetings and recce's just with DOP grips, lighting, art, everyone in terms of marking out on the lawn exactly where we were placing everything to get the payoff, to have Gabe walking in the background so perfectly behind the reveal of the body, to have Daisy pouring the tea in the perfect way. I mean, like that's the type of like choreography. It's a dance,
It is.
and I love doing shots like that. But they take time, and I think that shot alone we took at least 12 takes before we were
Wow.
confident we got that dance right, and that's a risk because in a film like Glasshouse, when you only have 4 weeks to shoot it, you know and where you choose to allocate your time is really important in making sure you're servicing the right beat. So I'm actually so thrilled that that shot landed for you
It
so effectively
did.
because it was one we were like, okay, this is a cheeky thing to put into a film that is already a really tight schedule because it did take a couple of hours to pull off, but I'm so proud of it and I'm so glad it came out the way it did.
And what makes it great is it shows you did not rush it. It was important for you to get it right. And you're right, it was a choreography with Gabe in the background with the body parts in the little
I know.
dolly.
So good.
uh,
What a legend.
but to them, it was just so normal. So let me give the people a little brief synopsis of what Glasshouse is about. It's sort of this post-apocalyptic slash dystopian world where the majority of the population has been wiped out by a pathogen called the shred. And it basically takes people's memories and it erases everything of who someone is. It's sort of like a, a virus in the form that is dementia, and it happened to the majority of the population. And you have this family, majority a group of girls, mother, daughters, and the son Gabe, who are living in this protected glass house. Anyone that comes within their property, they automatically shoot, no questions asked. It's about their own self preservation and survival. We're not going to spoil anything else. And just the movie takes on a life of its own when a stranger pops up and sort of turns everything upside down for them. Now, the movie does tackle another interesting scene that I saw was there was a magazine article that mentioned COVID 19. Okay. So, how important was that for you to reference something that is going on in today's world?
Yeah, that's a great question. This whole experience of making this film was incredibly surreal because it was very much a sort of meta life imitates art situation for us. Emma, my wonderful co-writer, associate producer, work wife, we came up with this concept in early February of 2020. So way before, like 2 full months before we really had a sense of the impact that COVID-19 was going to have. Like we had news articles coming out of China at that stage, but we had no
Yeah.
idea what was coming.
It wasn't until
And
April that it really hit.
yeah, and our first major lockdown in South Africa started at the end of March. And what was so insane about this is that we had a number of concepts that we pitched to Showmax, hoping that they would greenlight one. And they came back to us a week before the South African lockdown was announced, greenlighting a slate of 3 pictures. And I was in lockdown alone on my balcony, writing 3 scripts for like 3 months straight with Emma and our other co-writer on one of the other projects, Reg Stridham, wonderful talent, and our producer, Greg Buckle. And they were my lockdown family, where
Wow.
we ended up having the incredible privilege of being stuck in our homes, but getting to work on something that was personally so important to us. And when we were writing Glasshouse, that's when it was really sinking in the eerie parallels in our
Hmm.
concept that we had came up with before we'd had any idea that the world was suddenly going to take this isolated turn. Um, and we were experiencing that isolation and that claustrophobia in our own lives as we were writing the script. And then when we were lucky enough to be able to actually go into production in November 2020, again by fluke, our filming location, we were shooting at St. Peterson Conservatory in Port Elizabeth in a incredible park there. And they got announced as a hotspot like 2 weeks after we started.
Wow.
After our whole cast and crew went there, so we were in a bubble,
Hmm.
like very strictly bubble, terrified of like anyone getting sick with a COVID officer and all of the safety compliance happening.
Yeah.
Keeping to ourselves in this glass house. So it was like the whole experience was life imitating art and vice versa. And
Exactly.
I think it definitely informed the creative.
Now, the film is not the outbreak of this pathogen, which is
No.
called the shred. You can tell through various clues and hints throughout the movie, they've been living this for a while, whether it's one, 2 generations, or whatnot. The little girl, Daisy, she is fascinated with animals. She's never seen an animal. She doesn't know what a horse looks like. So, did COVID play a factor in the writing part of the script to maybe project into the future if COVID, because we didn't know what it was going to be at that time, how worse it was going to get, what life might be like 5, 10 years down the road.
Honestly, no, because I think the vehicle or the virus that is COVID, we knew at that stage how it operated and what family it came from SARS. So
Hmm.
and the shred is so different. So I don't think Emma and I were that. I don't. Maybe this was overly optimistic of us, but we did see the end in sight for COVID. We were estimating it was going to be like it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That was our guesses at the time in the first lockdown, and what we were most inspired by, because when we came up with a concept initially, we hadn't known the impact the pandemic was going to have, was frankly the themes of memory.
Hmm.
Both Emma and I have close family members who have suffered from memory loss. Hers dementia, mine short-term memory loss from not receiving oxygen to the brain for a couple of minutes during a procedure, and that I think personally has been something that's been quite relevant to us in our own lives. And we wanted to explore just how important memory is, not only for sense of self and identity, but in terms of influencing behaviors and how one engages with the world in the present.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a narrative, um, a popular narrative that, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And, you can go through life's traumas and you come out the other side and all of a sudden you're tougher and better. And my experience of that type of thing hasn't been true. I think, with PTSD and more mental health awareness and being cognizant of the fact that sometimes you go through experiences you don't bounce back from, and it does change you forever. And it doesn't necessarily change you for the better. And we
Exactly.
were really interested in exploring that through the eyes of two sisters who have such fundamental different approaches to their past and to preserving their identity and sense of self. One of which is like, this is too much. This trauma is not something I want. This does not serve me. I want to erase it. And the other who feels like holding on to all of that is their only way to survive and prevent such mistakes from happening in the future. And that sort of goes back to our deeper themes. And in a lot of ways, this film is an allegory for colonialism, because there's this facade of this idyllic life, but what price does one pay for that? Like, how much
Exactly.
blood is on your hands in order to maintain that?
And the two sisters that you mentioned, their characters' names are B and Evie. B is played by Jessica, Evie by Anya. They did a brilliant job as sisters. So let's talk a little bit about the family dynamics. We have the matriarch of the family, we have the sisters, we have Gabe, the brother, but it's not very clearly spelled out for us as to whose mother. There is incest in the family. That is sort of laid out for us. They know the world has dwindled down. They don't know what's outside their wooded area. They don't know. That's why when the stranger arrives, they ask question, "What's it like out there? Who's around?" And he describes it. It's pretty bad. So let's talk about the family dynamics. What was the important thing that you wanted to portray with the sisters? We all know they cared and loved for Gabe, who has come down with Shred, and they're trying to take care of him as best as he can. But let's talk about the matriarch. What do you see her role being in relation to the children that she's tasked to look after?
Well, she preserves the narrative, right? She crafts the reality with regards to the narrative of the family, and it's that narrative that keeps them safe.
Yeah,
With the Glasshouse as their sanctuary and the rules, that sort of commandments, so to speak, that they follow to ensure their safety and preservation in this world, and sort of the holder of the memories, and that for us was, you know, Emma comes from a family with a lot of anthropologists. I think her father's an anthropologist, and she grew up with a lot of those themes. And I'm fascinated. I study neuroscience and behavior, so how human behavior is influenced by cultural, by
hmm
versus fundamental, like what we're born with. That confrontation between how much our environment influences versus our genetics is
yeah,
something that really interests me. And the fusion of that, I think, came out of the power with Emma's and I working together, was the power of ritual, the stories, the fabrications that we tell ourselves, in order to survive or live in a way that we feel okay with who
yes,
we are and feel safe and secure. And oftentimes those are security blankets. And
hmm
the idea that that narrative can shift and change to enable a world in which you feel safe, I think was something we were really interested in exploring. And our matriarch mother preserves that narrative for the majority of the film.
when it comes to the two sisters, B and Evie, they couldn't be any more different. One, well, we're gonna get into it, but to some extent, the whole family is affected by the shred pathogen, that sort of speak. But there are some exceptions as to a few of them that might be immune to it. We don't know. It's not. I'm not giving too much away. We don't know. A lot of stuff is left up to viewer interpretation. But the two sisters and their relationship to each other, do you think Evie takes on the responsibility She feels it's her job to look after B.
Yeah, I think Evie's personality is such that she ends up shouldering the weight of the entire family, because that's just in her. That's just who she is. And her awareness of the truth and the fact that she's held on to the truth and knows the truth the way she does. But I think what I love about the film and what was important to us with it was to show that you can be so confident that you know the truth. That doesn't necessarily mean it is the truth to everyone else.
Exactly.
And the idea of the unreliable narrator. And I think that was when we were writing the script something that we really worked very hard to be cognizant of in terms of the reveals over the course of the narrative structure, of realizing that the narration of the reality that our characters perceive isn't necessarily what actually happened. And that's what's so frightening about memory in general, and also the stories that we tell ourselves, because as you know, in your interpersonal relationships, everyone has their own side to the story, and you tell
Mm-hmm.
the same experience from one person's perspective, you hear it from another. It can be two very different things. I find that exceptionally disconcerting.
Mm-hmm.
So then
Absolutely.
you enter, and especially now we're sort of in this like post-truth era where we just saw that exact same thing play out politically and with COVID on such a massive scale. I mean, and that's where this film again felt so meta to us, because when we were writing it, we'd only begun to hear sort of the dissent or the division created by the COVID situation of different people sort of believing different things about the virus and its origins and its level of threat based on where they were coming from and their perception of reality and how different those narratives were.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. So let's talk about the stranger. When the stranger comes into their lives, in your opinion, who is he supposed to represent? Is he supposed to represent somebody that is bringing the outside world truth to the family, or is he there to, for his own gain, to have a sanctuary, a stable place to live out his years? He very quickly realizes that the matriarch has a plan for him. He's very quick to pick up on that. So, how do you view the stranger when you were writing him, and ultimately what he ended up being on the screen?
What I love about the character of the stranger is that, and all of the characters in this film, which I feel is very true to life, is that they're both the heroes and the villain of their own story.
Exactly.
And while everyone can do things that could be crucified as wrong from their perspective, and if you understand where they're coming from, you can empathize and or agree from their justification why it was acceptable and
Mm-hmm.
how they're able to live with themselves with the choices that they make. I think the character of B is particularly painful in terms of how she lives with herself, and that I'm not going to speak much more about that, but
Yeah.
that to me packed the greatest punch, and the choices that she made to survive. um but I think without getting too deep into anything from a spoiler perspective, what I love about the stranger is setting him up that we wanted the audience to have to decide what they thought he was, and
Absolutely.
not be overly prescriptive there, and let it possibly go both ways.
Yeah.
um, because I think through his through line as a character, when you finally understand him and where he's coming from, all of his choices I resonated with me, regardless of whether or not I would think they were right or wrong.
In a world like that, there really is no right or wrong. It's like you said, it's up to everyone's perspective and how they view the world. The ending, we're not going to spoil. Did you guys grapple with how to end the film? I loved how you ended the film. It was sort of a shock, and then boom, fade to black into the credits. Did you guys grapple with the direction on how to end it, or was it pretty much agreed on? I think there were a total of three writers on this script. Were you
Too, it was Emma and I.
Emma and you were you
Yeah.
both on the same page on how to end this?
I think instinctively, yes. We did have conversations about the ending, with Greg, producer, and Showmax. Those conversations were had, and it was very carefully interrogated. But the ending that is in the film is the ending that felt right and the most unapologetic and truthful to the themes of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt very strongly about that. The world is not always roses.
Exactly. And if I was the stranger, and if I was in his shoes, I could see me making the exact same decisions as throughout the
which is
movie.
horrifying.
It
But
is. It
yeah,
is.
but also, it's like when you're in survival scenarios like that, how often people choose themselves, and empathy sort of goes out the window in certain scenarios. And I think no one likes to talk about it, but I think oftentimes we are selfish.
That it's in our nature. Just one last question. If you had to pick, would you say this is like a post-apocalyptic movie, a dystopian type film? What word or phrase would, in your mind, best fit this movie?
For me, it's a dystopian fairy tale.
Okay.
When we were writing it, we were like, "This is a fairy tale." Even the morality plays in it. It thematically,
The
oh,
costumes,
yeah, like
the white.
both Emma and I love the Bronte sisters and grew up reading gothic horror novels, and I think that influence definitely threaded through. I love fusing genres, but the look and the feel, I love doing something that looked very different than the expectation of a typical post-apocalyptic story. And
Yeah.
for me, that was very in line again with the allegory of colonialism and how you have this beautiful facade, but what rot does it cover? What does it hide? And sort of the subversion of what you would expect visually. Um, and the lyricism of that.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's why for me, dystopian fairy tale is the most accurate description.
Absolutely. And the costume design, the women with the white, the stained glass drawings on the windows. It is like a fairy tale, and that glass house is their castle in a way.
Yeah, and we were so lucky to shoot in that location, and the support we got from the Eastern Cape Tourism Board. I mean, they were so wonderful to us, and it was such a privilege to be able to shoot there. Emma used to visit as a child. She grew up in the Eastern Cape, and we did that very naughty thing where we had a location in mind when we wrote the script without knowing for sure we were going to be able to get it. And when we did, it was actually a dream come true, because when we first recce'd it, we didn't know this, but when I scouted the location for the first time and found the tree where they
Yeah.
have their guard post. We'd written that tree in the script already without having any idea if there was an actual suitable tree on the property. And I'm
Wow.
scouting the location, and there's the perfect tree in the perfect spot where we were able to production design was able to build that blind. And it was like it was yeah, it was
It was
so
perfect.
lucky.
It sounds
So it
perfect.
was yeah, it was unreal.
Guys, the movie again is called Glasshouse. It is coming out July 12th or 14th on digital and video on demand. It's a dystopian fairy tale like Kelsey just described, but there's so many plot twists. You're going to love the ending of this film. I highly recommend you go out and watch it. You won't be disappointed. Kelsey, you did a brilliant job in your feature film directorial debut. I loved how you did it. I loved how you pulled this story that you helped write and direct and put it all together. Congratulations. Are you excited, nervous as the date approaches?
Oh, I'm just so excited. Yeah, I'm really grateful. We've been moved every step of the way with how well this film has been received, and we're really proud of it, and really just yeah, the privilege of being able to share it so widely, means the world, and also show off what South Africa is capable of as of an industry, but in an independent film space. It's a privilege.
I gotta ask you, you don't have a South African. Are you from the States? And
Guilty.
yeah, yeah.
I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I've been living in South Africa since 2007, so just over 14 years now.
I hear
I'm a
it's a
dual citizen.
beautiful country.
Yeah.
I hear
Well,
it's a
I'm in love.
yeah, it's a beautiful country. One day I really hope to visit. Again,
You must come.
thank you to Kelsey Egan, the writer director of Glasshouse. I want to thank our audience, those who are tuning in live and those who are going to watch this later on. On behalf of the writer and director of Glasshouse, Kelsey Egan, and myself, everybody stay safe and stay walking. Bye bye.
Thank you.